I'm G, and welcome to the first ever recap and review of Yellowjackets Season 2 on Infamous Virus. Season 2, Episode 1, Friends, Romans, Countrymen. 2 months into winter, the survivors cope with falling rations, low morale, and their latest disastrous attempts to freeze a teammate out of the game. Shauna explores the secondary market for Yellowjackets memorabilia, while Thaisa, Misty, and Natalie all seek out best friends, both old and new. For those of you keeping the stat book, Lottie Matthews comes in off the bench. I love that the synopsises they give are so vague. I am really a fan of that, especially having seen the episode now and going back, I can sort of see what they mean by all those very vague lines. I think that's an awesome way to do a synopsis for an episode. So let's talk about Yellowjackets Season 2, which just premiered on the Showtime app today. It doesn't premiere on TV till Sunday night, but they always put it on Friday on Showtime's digital platform. So anyways, I got to watch it today. Very, very excited, very happy. I absolutely love this show. I binge watched it a couple weeks ago, and so I'm very excited to be able to catch the second season live and sort of see stuff unfold in real time on like social media or whatever, and like build my own theories based off of that, because really I watched it in such like a condensed space of time that I didn't have time to put together my own theories and stuff, because everything was just back to back. So like if I had a question about episode 4, I watched episode 5 like 10 seconds after I finished episode 4. So I really had no time to sort of think while I was watching it, which I mean was good because I really enjoyed the show and I loved being able to sit down and just consume it all in sort of one big bite. But I'm also really excited to finally get to watch it like week by week now. Very excited about that. So here's some of my notes that I took while I was watching the new episode. So first off, I loved that they added like a VHS flicker to the Showtime Presents at the beginning of the show. I found that's always taken me out when I watch shows, like sort of the network logo at the beginning. I mean, obviously they have to do that probably as like the distributor and the television network behind the show. But I like that they sort of made it a little bit more on theme. I thought it was really sweet that Van and Thaisa were like tied together so that Thaisa doesn't sleepwalk. I think that's really sweet because that sort of led to Van being almost killed by wolves last season. So I'm really glad that they found a cute little way to like take care of each other in a way. I watched an interview with some of the cast that plays the 90s versions of the characters, and the woods and like the cabin and stuff, that's all a set. Like, I guess you could tell that the cabin was a set, but the woods is a set. That's fake. It's not the real woods. The whole time I thought they were actually shooting outdoors, but they're not. It's all pretend. Like, they were talking in the interview about how it's like really, really warm on set and stuff, and they have to pretend to be cold. And I never noticed that. It looked so realistic. So honestly, mad props to the production designers and stuff, because that looks like a real forest. In the opening of this episode, we see a lot of Lottie, and they show sort of the remaining survivors leaving Ontario, because that's where the plane crashed. So I'm guessing they're probably flying out of Ontario back to New Jersey. So it was really cool to see that scene and sort of how the media reacted to them being back in the public eye for the first time since the plane crash happened. And I really hope we sort of get to see more of that in this season. I mean, obviously, I feel like the show is probably going to end with that type of scene, with them being rescued and integrating themselves back into society. Because I think the show's only going to run about 4 or 5 seasons, I think the creator said. So that's probably what they're going to end with, because, I don't know, you can only do so much with a plane crash story, because now we know they get rescued after 19 months. Speaking of that scene with Lottie, I can't believe that electroshock therapy was still legal in the 90s. I'm not sure exactly what they were doing, but it looked like there was electricity involved and zapping her brain and stuff, so I feel like it was electroshock therapy. Can't believe that was legal. I can't believe that was a thing that was legal. Also, I just noticed, I cut my hair a couple days ago, and I just realized I'm giving off, like, mad Shauna vibes, because her hair is kind of like this in like the present day setting. I mean, obviously mine's a little bit longer, but it's still on theme, unintentionally on theme for the video. Also, the intro sequence, I absolutely adore it. No Return is such a bop, and it's such a perfect song for the show, and I'm so glad it was made, because even on its own as a song outside of the theme song for the show, it's an amazing song. It's so good. I love playing it in my car and singing along to it. It's so good. One of the best TV openings, I would have to say. That might be biased because of how much I love the show, but I do genuinely think it's one of the best TV openings I've seen. So while I was rewatching the theme song part, it popped into my head, sort of the last thing we see before the credits start is that stuff with Lottie. And then I mentioned them getting on the plane after being rescued again. And it was like, is that logical to do? Like, here's a bunch of girls, and like a lot of their friends have died over the past 19 months because they got in a horrible plane crash and were stranded for 19 months and starving and dying, hoping to be rescued, and you're putting them on a plane again? Like, obviously that's the quickest mode of transportation to get to Ontario to New Jersey. Is that a logical thing to do? I feel like if I was in a plane crash, and knock on wood, I hope I never am, but I probably would never want to go on a plane again. I probably would never want to go on a plane ever again. Is there no train? Is there no train? And I get that it was probably like a high stress situation, needed to get them back as soon as possible to be reunited with their families and stuff. I just don't know why they put them on a plane after being in a plane crash. So after the intro, it's Misty and Shauna sort of role-playing a police interrogation scenario, and Misty's using a voice changer, and I wrote Misty in her ghost face voice changer era, which is self-explanatory. She was using a voice changer, so I was like, what other types of media have voice changers in them? And I was like, Scream, Ghostface. I was like, she's in her Ghostface era. And I mean, she kind of is, because she kind of helped kill Adam, or at least helped destroy the body and stuff. And Misty's probably killed people. So she's in her Ghostface era, I would say. Okay, so next, I still have a lot of questions about Misty's sort of basement. I mean, obviously, it was probably meant to be like a basement apartment type thing in the house, maybe. But I want to know why she's got like a torture chamber of sorts down there. Like, she's got the bed with the straps on it. And I don't know if that's some sort of like kinky thing that she's got down there going on. But yeah, I would love to know more about why her basement is set up like that. And hopefully it gets revealed this season. I don't know, I feel like a lot's gonna get revealed. We also get our first little voiceover sneak peek at Elijah Wood's character in this season. I'm very, very excited for him to show up. I think him and Christina Ricci are gonna like play off each other so well. And I feel like they're gonna have really good chemistry on screen, and I feel like their characters are just gonna like be so great together. So I'm so excited for him to finally show up in the show. So then we jump back into Shauna in the meat cabin, the meat shed or whatever, talking to Jackie. And at first I was like, this must be like a flashback scene. It wasn't a flashback scene. She's hanging out with Jackie's dead body all day. I also thought that the MASH thing was creepy as fuck. She was like, you'll live in New Jersey and you'll be a stay-at-home mom and you'll marry Jeff. And it's like, that's the truth. It was really nice to see the actress that plays Jackie be back somehow in these little flashback scenes where Jackie's alive in them and not just a corpse. It's so weird, but like, I don't know, Shauna's just in a total nightmare scenario right now where she's like stranded in the woods. She's like 16 or 17. She's pregnant, and her best friend just basically died because of a fight they had. Total nightmare scenario, and I think about if I was in her shoes, and you know what, I'd probably be going crazy too. I would probably be going crazy and seeing the cold, dead corpse of my best friend playing MASH with me if I was her. Oh my god, that's an absolute nightmare scenario to be in. The writers are like fucked up for doing that to her. Like, it adds a lot to the show, and stuff, but oh my god. I just one thing that surprised me though is and it's probably just for modesty reasons and like keeping the nudity to a minimum on the show, but I'm surprised they didn't strip Jackie's corpse of her clothes to sort of help the people that are still alive like layer up and stay warm, because that cabin doesn't really have heating except for the wood stove. Everyone's kind of dressed in layers when they're indoors anyways, because I imagine it's not like insulated properly or anything, so everyone's cold. But I could also see Shauna maybe having such an attachment to the corpse, sort of not let them take the clothes off her to help stay warm. This is so weird. It's so weird to talk about all these like gruesome things that are happening and be like, here are my thoughts. Here are my thoughts on the murder, guys. I'm also really glad that they're mentioning Javi being missing. I feel like that happened in the finale and no one really paid much thought to it, and I think that was probably intentional to sort of raise the stakes, because the finale and even the Doomcoming episode right before had like a ton of shit going on. So I don't know if maybe they didn't really mention Javi not being there to be like a plot point somehow. How, like, I don't know, everyone like ignored him or whatever. He's sort of like the odd one out. Like, he's the youngest. He's the little brother of one of two males there, or three males, I guess. Like, his dad just was totally murdered in the plane crash. Yeah, and I think it's a character thing that they're also doing for Travis to sort of give him even more traumatic shit to have to talk about in the show. So after this scene, the show started getting really good, and I got sucked in for a little bit, and I didn't take any notes on this next part. I did eventually realize I had to write a review of this episode around the babies don't cry, Misty line, and then she starts crying, which is just like so true, girl. So true. Every time I want to cry, I'm always like, only babies cry. Like, I'm an adult woman. I don't need to cry. And then I start crying. So I very much relate to her in that scenario. Then we got a scene where Jeff is rocking out in his car to that "Cut my life into pieces, this is my last resort" song. I can't remember what it's called. I don't know what it's called, actually, because I've only heard it used in meme context. So it was very funny that he was just friggin' jamming out in his car to that song. I thought it was hilarious and very fitting for his character, who's just like a stereotypical suburban dad. Just friggin' rocking out to like "It's just one of those days where you don't want to wake up, everything's fucked." I think that's the lines. I think that's the lyrics of the song. I'm not too sure, because I've never listened to it except for like in meme context. So we get a couple scenes with Shauna and her daughter Callie in this episode, and it just sort of blows my mind that Shauna like had another kid after like being pregnant in the woods at 17, and like they haven't said what's gonna happen to the baby yet. But I feel like having that type of experience would make a person never want to have a child. And, you know, maybe she did just have it to fit in and sort of go back to normal somehow, because that's what you do sort of in the typical American family. You get married to your high school sweetheart and you have a kid. You have a kid or two. She only had one, and I'm really surprised she did that, because personally, if I was in that scenario, I would never do that. So we get to sort of see how Taissa and Simone's relationship is sort of heading right now, and it's not great. I mean, I feel for Simone. That's absolutely traumatic to find that in your basement, and your wife has like a weird doll of your son, and just all that shit going on. However, I am rooting for Steve the dog. Steve the dog, I love you, and I hope you don't get your head chopped off. But yeah, I really feel for Taissa's character, because just like, she basically just got like a huge job thing, like being the governor or mayor. I don't remember what the exact title is. And then like going through all this with your family and not being able to see your son and stuff. It's really saddening, and I really think that's going to open up a lot of like emotional stuff when like adult Van comes into the show. Hopefully she shows up soon, because I'm very, very excited to see her character all grown up and hopefully rekindle stuff with Taissa, because we never sort of see why they've separated yet, or sort of if they like broke up the romantic relationship while they were still in the woods or whatever. So we get sort of another little bit of a scene with Jackie and Shauna in the meat shed, where Jackie's ear comes off and Shauna holds on to it, and it just made me think about how like fucked up and emotionally jarring Jackie's death scene was. Like, I knew Jackie was gonna die. I had seen spoilers online. But, like, it's so crazy, because just the way that they show her dying, like, it throws you off for a second, because she comes back in and everyone's very welcoming, and they sit her by the fire and they put a blanket around her. I was like, oh my gosh, like, maybe she doesn't die after all. Like, maybe that was just, like, a bad dream scene or something. Like, this is so sweet. They're also welcoming her back. And then they show the crowd of the Yellowjackets, and we see, like, Laura Lee, who has died at that point, is in the crowd, and they give her hot chocolate. And they definitely do not have hot chocolate in the woods. And I was like, oh shit, she died, and this is her dying and like going to heaven, I guess. I don't know if Jackie'd go to heaven. I assume she would. She seemed to be a good Christian girl. They never say her religion, but I'm just assuming. Yeah, and I know that when you, like, die of hypothermia, I think, like, sort of just before you die, don't you get, like, really, really warm or something? Or your body tells you you're warm, and then you take off more layers or whatever, and then you die because it's your body doing some weird temperature thing. And then even before the episode ends with Shauna eating Jackie's ear, I sort of knew it was gonna happen. I've seen a theory where, like, sort of the reason when Shauna gets back to society, she ends up with Jeff, is because she's eaten Jackie, and we see here she eats part of her ear, so it honestly wouldn't surprise me if she does eat Jackie to do some sort of metaphorical, like, mental, like, you aren't going to get to go home ever again and have a relationship, so I'm going to eat your dead corpse and marry your high school boyfriend, but part of you will be in me forever because I have eaten you. Once again, very fucked up things to be talking about. The show is crazy, just how nonchalantly they sort of throw these ideas of, like, cannibalism and eating your best friend at you to, like, be a plot point. I also have to mention, I really, really love the shot they do for Lottie's close-up, sort of when she's calming someone down in the facility she was in, where she puts her hand on their chest. They do this really nice sort of, like, close shot of her, but it looks quite realistic just by the angle and the lens they were using, I think, and I just really love it. It sort of makes her, like, the focus, and I guess that's the point of doing a shot like that, but I really like it. It's a really good artistic choice. Yeah, we get to see adult Lottie running a cult, and obviously they kidnap Nat in the last episode. I don't have a whole lot to say on that scene, but I can't believe they gave her a metal fork. I would think if you had a prisoner, you wouldn't want to give them any sort of utensil that could be used to harm someone. Like, I even think in the last episode, Misty had plastic utensils for the journalist lady. Lottie's cult really needs to work on their utensils for prisoners. Finally, to sort of close this out on somewhat of a high note, but also a little fucked up note, I thought it was really sweet that Van wrote, like, I heart you in her blood on Thais's arm. Very fucked up, but cute, and I guess fitting for their relationship and what they're going through and what they've been through. I thought that was sweet. I'm really excited to see them reunite as adults, and I don't know, I mean, Thais is married and stuff, but I feel like you gotta root for her and Van somewhat. I'm rooting for them personally, because I like Van's character. Yeah, I cannot wait to see where this show takes us this season. I'm so excited to get to cover it and talk about it weekly on here. So yeah, I think that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and let me know what you thought about the episode down in the comments. And I will see you next Friday for another recap and review of Yellowjackets Season 2 here on Infamous Virus. Stay groovy.